also very proud of our leadership committee that has brought you this great panel. So sitting before you, we have a fantastic group of women leaders in varying sectors of the construction field, and I'm very excited that you'll be able to hear from them today. A few relevant statistics that I think is really important for our audience to know, and that is that construction has the highest industry average hourly earnings at $27 an hour for all workers that have less than a bachelor's degree, notwithstanding the clear benefits of working in construction. Job openings in the construction industry remain at very high levels. Currently, there are about 300,000 job openings in construction, just higher than the average number of job openings in that industry in the last 7 years. And also, very tellingly, the data shows us that if more women entered the construction field, and there was a raised share of employment among women, that we would see a greater level, or we would have a reduced pay gap. And I think that's really important. One of the reasons that the council wants to uplift jobs in the construction industry is they are STEM jobs, they are high paying, and therefore very good for women and girls to be focusing on them. I'm convinced that the construction worker shortage can be resolved through introducing more women to construction at earlier times in their lives. And with that said, today's goal is simple: elevate the voices of women in construction, learn about the trades, look at some of these fabulous role models, and hopefully we will have more young women inspired to do the same. We hope that those of you who are watching and listening today will be motivated by their resilience and their passion. And so before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. There will be a brief question and answer portion if we have time at the end. So put your questions as you have them in the chat. And my general counsel, Tracy Apuku, is going to watch the chat and make sure that we get to as many of your questions as we can. And with that, we're going to get right in, and we are going to start with my co-moderator, Barb Dimauro. Barb is the CEO of Audience Development Strategies and an association management firm that's based in Avon. For the past 8 years, she served as the executive director of the Utility Contractors Association of Management. She also produces the annual New England Women in Construction Conference. I've been to it. It's fantastic. That's where we met. And the goal is to bring women in construction from across the region for a day of presentations, panel discussions, and networking. She's very passionate about connecting women in the trades with opportunities, resources, and information, and each other. So I'm so grateful, Barb, that you've joined us today.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. We are looking forward to getting some pearls of wisdom from you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go around and have each of our panelists introduce themselves, tell us who you are, and tell us what you do. So V, you want to start?
Yes, I will be happy to start. Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you so much for putting this together. Very excited to be here. My name is Vincencia Adusei. You may call me V. My company is VASE Management. We are based in New Haven, Connecticut. We specialize in construction management, that is managing construction projects for mostly government agencies, hospitals, institutions, and quite a bit of housing projects. We also have real estate division of our business where our company do build our own real estate and then we manage them in-house. So I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Okay. Go ahead. Don't be shy.
Krystal Green. Just a little bit about me, where I come from, you said, Lieutenant Governor, sorry.
Yeah, please, please.
I got into the trades, I came through a job funnel program from the city of Hartford, Connecticut. I initially enrolled into it to see what else I was good at in life. I was going to be a weather tech, pretty much your roofing or anything that has to do with your siding, lead abatement specialist. Through that program, I was actually adopted by the Carpenters Union. It was back then it was Local 43. I started off as a 50% apprentice because I had no background, I had no knowledge, just had a lot of drive and ambition. Through the job funnel program, I graduated from there, got into the Carpenters Union in 2015. As a second-year apprentice, I became a delegate. I was overly active, overly ambitious, and overly driven. But in my third year as an apprentice, I was the first female elected to the North Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, first Black woman, first apprentice. And from there, thank you, I have been afforded all the opportunities that I could possibly take. I've just been grabbing them up and collecting them like coins. And this is the reason why I'm here today. Thank you all for inviting me, because I'm super passionate about allowing somebody who has no idea, or even somebody who has a little bit of an idea, and showing that it's possible. I truly attest all of my success to being able to give back and becoming an inspiration. I'm looking forward to that. Right now, I'm actually building the additional tower for the Connecticut Children's Medical Center. That's going to be the 10th hospital in the country to perform surgeries while the baby is still in the womb for the mother. So just, you know, more rewarding work. I've pretty much felt like I built Hartford, Connecticut and surrounding towns because of it. I guess I'll stop there. I don't know what else to say.
Can I just ask you, Krystal, so where do you live?
Right now I live in Bloomfield.
Okay.
I have been a Hartford resident before.
I will be asking you to go run for something, because I just heard your story about becoming a delegate. And so I just have to say, whenever I see somebody that I think should run for office, I ask them. And I know the research shows it will take another 6 people to ask you, but just consider yourself asked. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be the second. I'll be the second. I'm a big Krystal Green fan.
So I can go jump for joy for that nomination from you. Very, very esteemed,
absolutely,
very respected.
absolutely.
So
I'll help you.
Thank you both, Barb.
Okay, and Barb just endorsed as well. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll volunteer to work on your campaign, Krystal. So I'll be your third person.
There you go.
Awesome.
I'm Liz Skidmore. I'm also a union carpenter. I started my apprenticeship in 1989, if you can believe it. I had a slightly different path. I was in college and was supposed to become some kind of manager, I think, from my background. And just didn't like the idea of working in an office and sitting still and shuffling papers for the rest of my life, and was trying to figure out what kind of work would feel more satisfying and meaningful to me. And like, you know, it seemed like adults complained about their jobs all day long. And was it possible, you know, in my early 20s to find a job that actually was fun and satisfying? So that and lots of other questions, I decided to become a carpenter, and also went through a pre-apprenticeship program called Women in the Building Trades, which helped women learn about the trades and get some certification early on, which these pre-apprenticeships are fabulous at. And started my apprenticeship, which is a 4-year training program that's a combination of on-the-job training and classroom training. won the Golden Hammer Award as a fourth-year apprentice, which is a sort of a skill test for as we complete our apprenticeships. Went to work in the field, did a lot of heavy highway concrete formwork, a lot of infrastructure type work, a teeny bit of finish, definitely not this old house type carpentry, but like big heavy commercial construction. Loved it so much, and have been moved up various career ladders since then. Became an assistant project manager with a general contractor, and then an opportunity to come to work for the Carpenters as an organizer opened up, and so I ran with that. So the last 25 years I've done that, which has been you know, talking to carpenters about the value of the union, talking to contractors about the value of partnering with other signatory contractors, and promoting the value of, you know, working in construction while also having health insurance, a pension. You know, so few people today have access to a pension, and we do. So I've just continued and done everything I can do to open the door for more women to come behind me.
Great, great, thank you.
Excellent. Excellent, Liz. You know, as we're talking about how we want to get more girls inspired, I'd love to hear from each of you about, you know, what drew you in, was there anybody who helped you on that path, or anything that really was the driving force behind you getting into construction? V, do you want to start?
Yes, I will be happy to. So I think for me, I would say it was my mother. I grew up in a construction family in Ghana, West Africa. And when I was growing up, my family, they built highways in Ghana, road highways. So I remember when I was about maybe as going back forth as 8 years old, or maybe even before then, being in the house, and in the morning the workers come to the house. There were 3 pickup trucks because most people that worked for our company didn't have cars. So they come to the house. My mom drove a pickup truck, my dad drove one, and my brother drove one. So all the workers came out and they all went to work. Whenever I had a chance to go with my parents to the job site, if I wasn't in school, I just love what I saw, and I love, it didn't click to me then until now, how integral my mom being a woman managing a road, and by the civil highway roads with my family, and she being the only woman there. And I remember some of the talks and people looking and thinking, for me, it was normal because that's all I knew when I grew up. So I thought it was fascinating. And I have family members that are women that are also in mostly road construction back home in Ghana. So I think, to answer your question, it was my mom. Now, fast forward to the United States. I did my master's here at the University of Bridgeport, and I actually started my company as a consultant. And I said, I'm not going into construction. There's too many people in my family that are in construction, so I'm not going into construction. But as fate would have it, as a consultant, working for New Haven Housing and some other housing agencies, a lot of the clients that I worked with happened to be contractors, and they were actually very small contractors. And I was working with these smaller contractors for a few years before I realized that most of what I was helping them as far as the technical assistance aspect of it was reading blueprints, understand how to manage projects, making sure that they will get the financing, they will get the bonding, they will do a good job with the project. And after a few years, there was something that I learned, and the one thing I could not help them with. A lot of the smaller contractors that I was working with, they could not get the bonding to do any job over $75,000 or over $100,000, because most of them were doing government work, and with government work, you could not do those projects without the bonding. And I learned that some of the reasons why a lot of the smaller contractors that I was working with that could not get the bonding was a lot of several reasons, whether it was the lack of liquidity, or they had some financial issues, or they had bankruptcy, or there's so many reasons why a lot of smaller contractors could not get bonding. So one day I was working with actually 3 smaller contractors. They were going after a project, and as we were working through, 2 weeks later, the bid was due. And they told me that they couldn't bid the job because they thought the bid was going to come respectfully each individually under $100,000. But all of the bids went over. So therefore, they needed the bonding to move forward, and they could not do it. And at that particular time, as a consultant, I was essentially doing everything but having the project at my company's name. So I realized that we've done this estimate, and these folks can really do the job. They were really good at what they did. The skills were good. So I was not worried that they could do the job. I talked to my insurance company and I said, what is it going to take for me to bid the job? Because I know they can do the work. I don't know why they can't get the bonding. That's something I cannot help, but I know they can do the job. And as fate would have it, I was able to get the bonding. Took a little bit of time, maybe about a week or so, but I switched from consultancy to construction. Had to get some contractor licenses, which at the time was not hard to do. You can do it online. So at that particular time, I bid the job. I was able to acquire the bonding, and I essentially got the job and worked with the same contractors. So as fate will have it, there was a necessity. Somehow I love the industry. The transition went from consultant to construction. And the rest is history. I think I've been doing construction management ever since. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and say it was easy to make that transition. The bonding company told me that I should be very careful because if anything goes wrong with the job, they will come after my company and whatever it is that I have that allowed me to get the bonding. So of course I was, a part of me was very scared, but more so I wanted to do it more than I was scared. I knew that I could make a difference. I knew that.
Your story, V, is how businesses, how people get the idea for businesses. And your story is you saw a need and
Yes.
you stepped off the cliff, but you were ready because you had already been doing the work. All right, so let's hear from our other 2.
Excellent, excellent. Krystal?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I came through a job funnel program, and I think what's important for people who are trying to incorporate more young women or girls to come in. I got in I started looking when I was 28. So leaflets, pamphlets, advertising, marketing. My mother, who is a postal worker, brought in a flyer from her town. I believe she was working in West Hartford or Avon back then. So it came through their mail system, and she brought a flyer home, and she was like, hey, you need to do something until you figure out what it is that you want to do, because you do everything all the time and then you get bored. So can you just go give this a try? And so then I got into the job funnel program, and then once I got into the carpentry side of it, I realized that I was very isolated, alienated. I was told all the things most women get told, or anybody. A man in nursing will probably get told the same thing. You don't belong here. It's not for you. You can go do this. You can go do that. And I'm super stubborn. And I was just like, well, I think you guys are, second guessing my abilities. And just because of my body size or my frame structure doesn't mean I can't go out here and put in just as much as work as you guys do. So I think I come from a place of stubbornness and just a stick to it kind of mindset. I saw the need. I saw the holes. I saw the dark spaces that no light were being shined on in that regard. And I was a part of that dark space. I saw just how much we didn't have bathrooms, and women need bathrooms, right? So those things every day kind of forced me to go to work in the rain, forced me to go to work in the cold, forced me to pick up the hammer and learn. It forced me to be out there with them, because I'm like, well, if you want the same respect, if you want to do the job, if you want equal everything, equal pay, if you want to become a professional, you have to get up like these guys every day and, make something of yourself. And then the activism side really brings it in. There's building the building, but then there's also building the brotherhood and the sisterhood that goes with it. And that's where I found my true calling. just in my nature, me asking questions, me and be like, hey, well, how come I can't do this? Or can I do this? Or should I do this? And then I also had very, very, very intelligent and affluent mentors such as Liz Skidmore herself. With her golden hammer, I received my golden hammer, and hopefully there's other women and men that will come behind us and have those same achievements that happen. I wouldn't be here without mentorship. I would not still be in this union. I would not be in this industry if it weren't for mentorship and exposure and these kind of situations where you get to talk and you get to explain and you get to see it all make sense. I'll be in my 10th year in April 15th of this year, so I'm going to celebrate that, and I'm going to stay in it for as long as I can. But my work is only as good as the people that come behind me, because right now I'm paying for the people that already came before me. So that's how I got in, just being really stubborn and saying, hey, there's a lot of dark spaces, there's a lot of holes, there's a lot of things you guys can do better. There's certain things that women need that you look past or overlook, or maybe you just totally disregard it. But hey, I'm loud, I'm here, I'm the squeaky wheel. Let's fix this. And if you don't fix it now, there'll be a flood of women that come behind me that will force you to fix it eventually. So might as well be
right. And I think you're absolutely right, Krystal. I think there's so many things that we're missing, right? Or that are still missing, and we can fill those holes, not me personally, but you all with all your skills. And I love the shout out to moms here. That's great too. Liz?
There's so many answers to this. You know, my mom too, she was an independent career woman, and I'm old enough that not all of my friends growing up their moms had paid work in addition to their work as moms. But she kind of told me, like, find what you care about, or showed me, find what you care about and do it ferociously. And then I've just always felt like there's something not right in the way the world is set up, and I want to be part of making it better. I want to be part of breaking boundaries and making more room for people and letting people follow their hearts and their, what they're driven to do, even if somebody's saying you don't belong here. And so I got into the union, I started my apprenticeship, and then just all these men mentored me. There weren't a lot of women. There were some women before me, but not a ton. And they helped me too. But, I think, I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I went to work and was like, I want to learn, show me how to do that. And it sort of pulled the teacher out of the men I was working with, because you're dependent as an apprentice on whoever you get partnered up with. They got to teach you the trade, and maybe they're a good teacher and maybe they're not. But my overwhelming enthusiasm seemed to pull the teacher out of people, and these guys just taught me so much, so much, both, how to handle tools and how to do complicated skill things, but also how to get along with people on the job site, and how to tell construction jokes, and how to tell the difference between when someone is being kind of bullied and when we're just all joking around and everything's okay, we're just joking around. And then a couple of the union leaders really saw some spark in me and supported me. And there was a guy who had designed and taught a labor history class that all the apprentices were required to take. And I got into that, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to know more about this. And before I knew what was happening, I was teaching the class. Like, that guy is like, okay, you want to learn this? The best way to learn it is teach it, and we need more teachers. So you start teaching a 13-week, 3 hours a night labor history class. And I was like, okay, as long as I can call you, and then it's just kind of grown from there. So I think it's been, I brought my passion and excitement, but I was just met over and over again by people who were like, all right, here's the next step. Here's the next thing you can do.
All right. Thank you. V? Okay. Let me ask any of you, and some of you have alluded to it, but what are some of the challenges that women in construction face? You have somehow rows above, but I'm sure there are things you would like to fix, challenges that you see other women going through. So who would like to answer that?
I can start. So I think the biggest challenges, and I'm gonna assume that women that are especially starting the business or getting into wanting to go into the trade will face will be as you start and as you get bigger, everything becomes bigger. So I'll give you an example of my own experience. When I first started the business, finance and liquidity was a tough one for me as a business. But I also saw that it was the biggest thing for all smaller contractors, anybody getting into the industry. The capital to entry into the construction industry is large. So as you go through it, one of the things I always advise people, because I did it and that's how I was able to grow. I did jobs on a smaller increments. When I first started the project, I managed a lot of jobs on a smaller scales, a few thousands. And that was one of the ways that I managed my finance, not taking on more job than I can manage. Now, thankfully, my company is managing jobs that are in the millions. But I think if I did not start small and I started bigger, I would not have been able to be in a position to finish those jobs. So I still see that that's a lot of that's a lot of the challenges that a lot of businesses face in the construction industry. And when you do construction work, most of us have what you call net 30, which means you have to do the work with your own workforce for about 30 days and then get paid. And a lot of smaller contractors struggle with that. Just 2 weeks ago, my company hired a smaller contractor to do a project for us in Norwalk. And initially, this company thought that they could start the job on their own. But when we started the job, they came to me and said, V, we can't start this job. And we needed the money for the materials. And that was $50,000 that I gave him to start the job. And we never do that. But I also understand that that is a struggle and the biggest challenges that is faced by many businesses. When I first started my business years ago, somebody was able to give me the opportunity and give me that help. So I was happy to do that. So to answer your question, one of the biggest challenges in the construction industry from the business point is finance and capital to entry. There's several more, but the other part will be the labor part, but I will let my fellow co-hosts talk about that. Now, when I first started a business, it was just me. I was the superintendent, the project manager. I was everything because I didn't have money to hire so many people. So I did it all. So, but now when my company hiring over 15 full-time employees and still growing, there's also that challenges of having to manage so many staff members, not just me. So there's always going to be different challenges in the construction industry, whether you work in the trade or whether you own the company trying to work with employees and trades. So that would be the two of many, but that would be the two I'll share with you so far.
All right, either Krystal or Liz, do you want to weigh in on that?
I'll always go before you, Liz. You wrap it up. So I wrote down 3 things just so it can stay fresh on my mind as I'm actively always in the field with the other sides of the roles that I have. I just don't know how much time I have, so please feel free to stop me. I think one of the major issues, not major, there's 3 of them. There's annual income. So women, we get paid the same. We just may not work as long. I can delve into that if you need me to at the back end. PPE. Either not fitting or not having. For those of you who don't know what PPE is, it's just everything that pretty much keeps us safe. I have some of it on right now. It's our high vis, it's our hard hats, it's our gloves, and it's our harnesses. And the industry is changing. They are trying to get better with that. And a lot of carpenter companies are understanding that these issues can be fixed easily. So, but on the other side of the industry, I don't know how anybody else is, but I know the carpenters do a really good job with getting small and mediums with actually purchasing your own harness, which will it's like a fall stop harness. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it saves your life. It's like your lifeline, and it has to fit a certain way. And obviously women are structurally different from men, so those things. And then biology, where I would say that women, obviously we once a month we have certain issues that may hinder us or prevent us from being able to perform the same way we did the week before. Pregnancy, it's another thing, right? We have the right to procreate, and we should be afforded that ability, but that can also hinder you in the workplace. Men can obviously work 365 days if they want to, but those of us who want to be mothers, we might face some challenges. And then just your mentality has to be something that you do gymnastics with until you like just train that muscle, because whether your height, your size, and your ability to just lift in general, if you're 5'5" and you want to do this, you most certainly can. You just have to understand that every day you have to give more than 100% to lift 8 foot or 10 foot, 4 foot, 8 foot by 4 foot, sheetrock boards that are probably 100 and something pounds. And you got to do it every day for 8 to 10 hours a day, and you got to be proficient at it. So those are just some of the challenges that I would say that we would face, and that we still face to this day. But I think that it is getting better, not on a negative tip, but positively it's getting better, but it could still be a lot better.
Great.
I love both those things you both said. I think some of the challenges for women are the exact same challenges for anybody, of like, it's friggin' early. The weather's terrible. We're outside in it. It's heavy. We're beat up, physically beat up on the job. Although I've been reading that now sitting 8 hours a day is as bad for us as smoking. So then I'm like, okay, maybe we actually were in better shape in the field. But I'll also say 3 things. One is, like, women still have to do 2 jobs in construction. You do your trade and then you manage the BS. And it would be really great if we could just do our trade.
Well, that's my job too.
I know. Well,
Oh,
right. Yeah. I think there's a little bit universality to that. But like, can we just have one job? That would be one thing. I think the biggest challenge probably is this just antiquated idea that women can't do construction. And, one of the things I like to say is that, all around the world from the dawn of time, women have been doing heavy physical labor. And if you think about it in that big perspective, like, there's no reason we can't do construction. And, I probably got, I don't know, ahead on Krystal height-wise, and I'm taller than most of the men I know. I'm not quite 6 foot, almost 6 foot. And, one of my jokes is that men would say to me, women can't do construction. And I'd say, oh, really? Like, come on. And you don't have to have this height to do it, as Krystal said. And there's quite petite women who do the work, including, there's a guy who was so little, he was actually a professional jockey that I worked with for a long time. And he was the guy on the job who knew where every scrap of wood was. So like, if we're trying to slam something together this was a big concrete job, and we needed one more piece of plywood to finish the form, he knew where it was every time. So he couldn't lift the heaviest thing, but he found other ways to make himself invaluable on the crew. And I think we've all worked in groups and we know everybody brings different skills. The third thing is, I think somewhat the nature of construction, there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, tough love in construction. Like, it's raining, the concrete's coming, we got to get out there. And someone's like, I don't want to get wet. And the foreman just is like, suck it up, either do your job or go home. The foremen and supers and project managers have not been trained enough on the difference between that kind of problem and when someone comes with a harassment or discrimination situation. When I come to you with a harassment or discrimination situation, you say, suck it up, deal with it, or go home. That's the exact opposite of what needs to be said. And it is better than when I started, but it's still happening far too much that the people in managerial roles, from, direct supervisor on the job site on up, just don't have enough education about anti-discrimination laws and what is required, how to properly do an investigation, how to, handle a harassment complaint.
Thank you, Liz. I'm gonna ask you to answer this question first. I know you just got done talking, but I think you've got a lot to say about this. We're here because we want to get more women and girls interested. And I know you've done a lot of work in Massachusetts. So, this question is definitely apropos to what you're doing. What can we all do to better support girls getting into construction, women in construction, whether that's men, employers, teachers? How can we be more supportive in that effort?
One of the principles we learned is lead from where you are, which is also potentially universal. But in this space, what that means is if you're a teacher in a high school, you know, encourage girls to go into construction, even if it's a traditional high school. If you're, you know, work at an unemployment office, make sure you're sharing apprenticeship openings with your female career seekers, not just your male career seekers. If you're a foreman, keep an eye out for that woman who has that spark, and bring her under your wing. One of the things in construction, there's like kind of a core crew. So like if I'm Skidmore drywall, I might have 10 people that work for me normally, but maybe I get a big job, so I've got to pull a few extra people in. And historically, people's contractors' core crews are all white men. Don't stop there. Find those people, the Krystals of the world, and bring them into your core crew. We like to think that those super reliable employees just sprang from the womb like that, and some did, but the reality is almost all of them, somebody invested in them, somebody mentored them, somebody brought them over and was like, hey, take a look at the blueprints. Let me explain why we're doing this right now. Somebody made sure, like, okay, things are slow, got to lay off a couple people, let's hang on to her. You know, so, you know, for contractors, think about diversifying your core crew. And not because you're supposed to, but because you're going to get, you're losing out on the kind of passion that Krystal and I have talked about if you just don't even consider bringing a woman in. You know, the 10 years I worked in the field, probably 7 of them I worked for one contractor, and I went above and beyond in every way I could because they had invested in me. I think for government officials to keep talking about this stuff, to keep, you know, really appreciate Lieutenant Governor you having this event, and you know, getting to meet you last year at the other event, you know, this ongoing conversation. You know, and I think one of the mistakes I see people doing is when they think about getting more women in construction, they, you know, sort of within the industry, they're like, oh my God, let's have a career fair. And there's a role for career fairs, but like what I'd rather contractors do is hire women on your job. And if you're a GC, have the conversation regularly with your subs. Where's your, you know, why do you only have one category of people? Bring more people onto your job site.
Okay, thank you. V, I'm curious what you have to say, especially because you're in a hiring position. You know, you may have things that you're doing right now to bring more women in and also to encourage more girls, but how can we support that effort? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
One of the things that I've noticed is that you know, we can all say we want to be equal, and we're not, right? We're not, but not, it's not as a bad thing. You know, men and women are different. We bring different things to the table. I have superintendents that work for VASE that are female. I'll give you one example of one of my favorite superintendents, Cindy. The way Cindy runs the project on the job site is so impressive to me because even I learn from her. You know, if I go out and making my rounds in a day, whether I'm in Greenwich Hospital or Yale University or Girl Scouts camp, wherever I go, I check on the jobs and I talk to my superintendents, and then we want to make sure that things are going progressively. And then we have staff meetings. But one thing I noticed about, you know, Cindy and our other female field staff is that she's very attention to details, but not in the ways that everybody else is, right? And that goes for all the other women that work for VASE. It's so strange because it's like whether you're at work or you're at home, it's all the same. The women tends to be more nurturing on the project, you know, things that, you know, sometimes men may say, no, let's just do it. It doesn't matter. Like I would say, or the women would say, well, let's look at the underlying situation. Let's discuss that. Let's see what we can do better. Even something as simple as cleaning on the job site, you know, when I used to do the job and I used to be a superintendent in the trail, I'm managing the job alone. I make sure that I clean up as I go. I make sure that my subcontractors clean up as they go, not like waiting until lunchtime or at 2:30 to clean up, so that all the entire day the job site is secure. So I told Cindy the other day, I said, Cindy, you know, I'm going to start having you join me at the outside functions when I go to these meetings. So you can meet other women and we can talk about how much fun we have in the industry because we do things very differently than other people are doing. And I find that, like you said, Liz said, lead by example where you are. So we feel like if people are seeing us doing it, then they realize that it's the norm. We want people to just see us doing what we're doing or come to the job site and seeing that we're doing something that's different from what the traditional is. And it just so happens that it's a woman superintendent or it's a woman that runs the company. Most people don't know who I am until they see me because they think the company is run by a man, which is fine. I went to a meeting a long time ago where we were there to sign a contract. I remember that was one of my very first contract for $1.2 million. And I went there with two of my project managers. And the whole time we were at the meeting, they kept asking me to go and get a copier, which is fine, I don't mind. But then at the end of the meeting, they passed along the contract and my project manager passed the contract to me and then I signed it. And then all of a sudden everybody got up from the other team saying to me, "We're so sorry. We assumed that the other person was the company person." And I don't take those things personal, but I will tell you that after that meeting, we did a great job and the company gained respect from there. So we lead by example. We don't take note of the fact that the industry sees us as a unique, like a women indie. We just do what we do because we have a job to run.
And
So
it sounds like as much as we can, shining a light on what you're doing and the women that are doing things and making sure that we're sharing that out, whether that's Susan, whether that's companies like mine, the media, like we all need to be talking about that because it's really cool. And it's really interesting. And I think that would get, like you're saying, that could get more women involved.
And
Krystal, do you want to?
I want to make sure that I just want to say one thing though. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong about or not anything different about what the guys are. I just think that women in the construction industry, especially in the management industry, can bring so much more nurturing to the industry that people oversee. And that's why I would love to see more women in the industry.
And you know what,
Absolutely.
I always say that women and moms are really good at getting people to share, to get along, clean up after themselves. V, I was reminded of that when you were talking, and your story also reminded me when you were talking about signing the contract. I'll never forget this. I think I was 29 years old. I had been elected to the State House of Representatives, and one day we had a Saturday session. And so on Saturdays, you didn't have to wear a suit or fancy clothes. You could just wear casual clothes. And so I was trying to go into the chamber to go vote, and the sergeant at arms wouldn't let me in because he didn't think that I belonged in the chamber to vote. So another example of you got to get used to seeing women doing non-traditional things.
Right. And I think, for myself, I run into that as well. Being a female business owner, I've definitely seen some of that. And I think I'm a lot like Krystal in that I'm very stubborn and I want to prove everybody wrong. And I just dig in when I see that happening.
I have a fair amount of that too. Tell me I can't do
Krystal,
something and I really want to do it. Sorry, Krystal.
Yes, exactly. Do you have any thoughts, Krystal, that you want to add about how we can be more supportive of bringing more girls and women into construction?
Yeah, I think everybody said what I was thinking. I think I'm on the, like, again, boots on the ground portion of it, where V understands the whole of it, and then Liz understands the analytical breakdown. Whenever you do bring a woman in, or whenever you do go to these high schools, to these trade schools, to these career fairs, whenever we have these things, make sure that we're telling these young girls and these women that, hey, you are the pioneers. Like, almost activate them for their own good and for the good of the collective whole of the women. Be very careful. There's nothing wrong with a quiet woman. There's nothing wrong with a woman who wants to just keep her head down and get her work done. I just feel like in the times that we're in the era that we are, the things that we're privileged with these moments, we have to capture them and be as bold, if you will, and brave in these environments where I don't expect everybody to be like me, but just take something from being able to go into, let's say, a DPR trailer last year in March and understanding that I was sitting one of three women, one of the only Black women in the room. And I just said, hey, I'm privileged, I'm fortunate to be here because I'm the only person that looks like me on this entire job site. Now it sparked the head guys, and that it must have sparked him or something. I just said it because of my gratitude. This March, I'm not the only one. There's a cornucopia of diversity now with women in every trade. Every trade has at least one, if not two, and they're still there. And I'm not going to take the credit for it, but what if they didn't pay attention to it because of all of the paperwork they got to deal with, all of the blueprints they got to deal with, all the meetings they got? Maybe they're not seeing what needs to be seen, and then sometimes just empower these women, these young girls, to come in and be like, hey, if you see something, say something, just speak up, because sometimes these guys just need a little nudge, and the next thing you know, they'll take off. And I've been super fortunate and glad to that one conversation, that one Women in Construction Week 2024 now has changed exponentially for 2025. The room was completely different, and I think that's what's necessary. No matter what room we're in with these, just empower them, whether it's in high school or whether it's at somebody, a 35-year-old plus kind of seminar of women who don't know what they want to do with the rest of their lives. Just tell them, hey, just go in there and grab it by the horns and, make yourself known, leave a mark, leave any mark, because the mark matters right now. This is the time, or else we lose it. I mean, because it's always under attack. So.
And I'll just say, Krystal, I am often one of the few women in the room. And when I'm there, I will say, well, what about this woman? What about that woman? What about this person? What about that person? Because what Shirley Chisholm said is really important about bringing, if you're not at the table, pull up your folding chair. And because it matters and people are out there listening, and younger people, girls and young women are watching. And so with that, I wanted to give our audience the opportunity to ask these fabulous women some questions or get their take. So Tracy, can you get questions from our chat and pose them to our panelists, if you would?
Absolutely. I'm waiting for any questions to come in.
Okay, and I'm going to ask while we're waiting to see if there are any. So I'll ask any of our panelists, is there any piece of advice that you would like to give girls or women who are watching or have an interest? Perhaps something that you learned you wish you knew?
I'll go first. I think my advice is understanding that this industry, whether you're working or you're starting a business, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. I think very often people may come in for the wrong reasons, and then when the going gets tough, maybe they want to take a step back. But understand that every challenge is a learning curve, and it's going to get as tough as it gets. It really will. But the key is not to give up. The key is to learn from those mistakes. That's why I say start small. When you start these contracts, when you're given opportunity, even if somebody gave you $1 million opportunity day one, say no, please start me out. We started working for Greenwich Hospital, and I begged them to start us out small. Not that we couldn't do bigger jobs, but this is a new environment that we were getting into. We were working in the emergency building where there are lives at stake. I said, start us out small so we can understand how to work with you. And if there's any mistake, we can make it on a smaller level. We don't need a big contract. So that's my advice. Understand that the challenges will come. Start small so that you can mitigate the challenges that come your way. And don't think those things are terrible. Those are all learning experience. You learn so much by going through these challenges. And don't be afraid. Don't listen to anyone. Listen to that thing that's in your heart, because you know when you're doing something right. You know when you're doing something wrong. You know when something is off. Just trust that instant that you feel. Work as hard as you can and then pray. It's very simple. But work as hard as you can and then pray. And then when things work out, it's meant to be. When things doesn't work out, it's meant to be. But understand that you are going to face the challenges and be ready for it. But the rewards are also very significant.
And I'll just say to your point about working with the hospital and starting small, I think a fundamental piece of advice for anybody who is in business is all you need is one client. And if you make that client happy, all of a sudden you have way too many, because people will recommend you based on how you treated them, how you did the work. And so that is a universal bit of advice that goes beyond construction.
Yes. And it's true.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was writing down as all the panelists were speaking, and this is what I got from like the, advice to young girls who may be interested or maybe questioning: be bold, be eager to learn, be brave, have stubbornness,
Work
and
hard.
Be teachable.
Yep.
Right?
Work hard. Is always, you want to be a
Yes.
success. Hard work is always a given, because there's never an easy route. What I would add to that list, Barb, is take advantage of our technical high schools and our community colleges, because, oh my goodness, it is amazing what those offer. I have been to Abbott Tech, for example, in Danbury, and seen their carpentry program, their automotive program, their precision manufacturing program. I have visited Vinyl Tech in my hometown of Middletown, which now houses advanced manufacturing machinery that's used by high school students, but also the students at Middlesex Community College. There's so much out there beyond the construction trades. Precision manufacturing is yet another example of something like the building trades that is high paying. There aren't enough women. And guess what? Women are really good at it because they're very organized. They pay attention to detail. They have excellent dexterity. So make sure you see the benefits of public education, our technical high schools, our community colleges, which are free. And the other thing I'll say, I'll never forget this. I remember visiting with someone who went to college and was unhappy, to your point, Liz, in a seemingly bureaucratic, paper-driven job, and went into manufacturing and said, if only I had known that I could have done this right out of high school, I wouldn't have all the debt. I would have been so much happier at the time. But that's okay. You know, people are constantly starting off in other areas, but coming to new areas. And I hope that what you fabulous women have said will encourage other women to say, how cool, I want to do that.
I would just add, in addition to the paths into construction for the worker side, which is like my space, are absolutely the CTE schools, absolutely community colleges, but also people don't know enough about about apprenticeship programs, which is a pay while you learn model. It's structured, it's
That's what we say. Yep.
managed by the state, so it's not just somebody making up training, like there's real training. And you mentioned in the beginning that the average wage in construction is $27 an hour. I suspect that's national, is in Connecticut, the total package of wages plus health and pension and everything is $83 an hour.
Oh my goodness, my union friends would hear the 27 and say, you forgot the important part. So 80, how much?
83.
Yes.
83.
Mhm.
And there's college is valuable, and nothing against college, but there's been such a drive that it's been talked as if it was the only option. And the debt problem is enormous and just grows every year. Apprenticeship, there's zero debt. So not only are you not incurring any debt, but you're making money the entire time you're working while you're learning. So you start out at around $20 an hour to not know what you're doing. And then every year you get a 10% raise. Tell me what jobs get a 10% raise every year. And then you've got, your health insurance is paid for by the contractor. You're not paying for it out of your wages. It's in addition to your wages. So I think any woman who's interested in this, first of all, if you want to do this, you can do it. I was shy. I was a bookworm. I wasn't an athlete. I was tall. That being tall and white helped me. Just let's be real. And my enthusiasm helped me, but I was not I did not grow up like V did in construction at all. And I was able to do it. So if you want to absolutely go for it, you'll figure it out and dig into learning more about apprenticeships, because it's this incredible resource that not enough people know about. And it can be your golden ticket to a family sustaining wage and a really personally satisfying career.
And I'll
Okay,
add that Krystal said something very important. I think sometimes we overlook it. She said, it's about the mindset, the mentality. Your mind has to be there. If this is what you really want to do and you want to do it, then you have to make sure that your mind stays focused on that.
Okay, we have a question. Tracy, I want to make sure I have it right. Someone wants to know how to transition into project management. So I don't know, V or Barb, you want to talk about that?
Sure. What are they doing now? Would that be helpful? Because that might help.
We're in human resources.
Human resources.
Human resources. Okay. So I would say that in that case, if you say project management, you mean project management specifically in the construction industry. My advice is there are schools, and I think maybe it might be Southern Connecticut, but one of the schools in Connecticut does have a project management skills in the construction industry. I have to verify which particular school, but it is the one in New Haven. I think you can start there, because project management and construction will start you to becoming a project engineer. And then as a project engineer, you can understand all of the different aspects of managing the project. And then you can gradually get up to the project management and of course, then the overall construction management. And it will teach you the basics of the different aspects of the construction arena.
And I think Central CCSU also has construction management.
Yes, I think that's the one I was thinking of.
Yep. Tracy, do we have time for what? We'll do one more if there's any other questions.
Yep, there's one more. It says, how did you use your personal talents to translate into the carpentry career? What let you flip the switch?
I think that's a Krystal question.
My personal talents, outspoken, very much a people person, putting myself in the most awkward and uncomfortable situations that you probably never want to be in, but you have to be in. You really just have to go above and beyond what you think is normal. For somebody who's not me, I would say go everywhere where you see yourself wanting to be and say yes most of the times to anything that you can put yourself in. I wouldn't be on this panel if years ago I didn't already work that yes muscle, yes muscle, yes muscle, yes. Do you want to do this? Yes. Can you come here and do that? Yeah. Can you rally for this person? Yeah. Can you campaign for that person? Yes. Hey, do you want to work Saturdays? Yeah. Do you want to work Sundays? Okay. We're doing 7 10s this week. Are you coming in? Yes. Just say yes. and be uncomfortable and be awkward until you train that muscle where it just becomes your regular day to day. I would not imagine I was going to be this person 15 years ago. I wouldn't bet my life on it. But I just, be uncomfortable, get a mentor, have amazing people around you that you can talk to. Mentors are the only thing that's going to be your safety net and tell you like, hey, you can cry about this, but it's not that serious. Or, hey, maybe you should feel this because this really should hurt you. Like maybe you're a little too numb, right? So there's those. I don't know if I'm giving you a long-winded answer, but say yes, be uncomfortable, and put yourself in places where you see yourself wanting to be, even if you don't see yourself there already.
Fantastic. Can we have a round of applause for our fabulous panelists? So inspiring, all of you. Thank you so much. If you would like to see more of these fabulous panels of women in non-traditional occupations, we have a bunch of them online at the ct.gov portal. You can visit the Governor's Council on Women and Girls and watch them and watch equally fabulous, inspiring female trailblazers talking about how they got into doing what they do. And we look forward to seeing you at our April 1st subcommittee meeting at 3 p.m. That is our leadership subcommittee. We're going to continue leading, and we appreciate all of you joining us. And our next full council meeting will be in person April 8th at 3 o'clock in the LOB room 1E. Thank you, fabulous women, for participating today. And thanks everyone who joined us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lieutenant
you. Have a
Governor.
great
Thank you,
day.
panelists. Thank you all. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.